Hello everyone, and this is my review for WWE Smackdown on January 10th, 2017. And for those just wondering why it's being done in this format versus my typical format of over the camera, something has come up and it's kind of forcing me into a more audio variation of things for the time being. But this does give a good opportunity for me to attempt to edit in screenshots or, attempt to edit in a screenshot or something like that. So it's a good opportunity for me to work on my editing skills to go along with everything. But onward with past that, we are going into the review for WWE Smackdown from January 10th, 2017. The show started off with Dean Ambrose coming out and doing another Ambrose Asylum. He and his guest was The Miz. Also during this time frame, he announces himself going into the Royal Rumble. So does The Miz as well. They had a good back and forth on the mic, and one thing that was ended up being really good, like Ambrose decided to do like a tit for tat type deal when basically when the feud started. Miz gave Dean Ambrose a participation award, and he did that tit for tat here and gave it back to the Miz in this case. This does eventually lead into a brawl between the two of them, and Ambrose does come out on top of this one and ends out giving Miz the dirty deeds, and then he leaves the participation award with Maurice. He also had like other things in there, such as like a prop alligator head that he calls Maurice and everything. And there's a couple really good spots inside of this promo, and it really ended up working for me. I thought it came off rather well and does lead into something more between the two of them, because you would assume Miz is going to get some kind of rematch with his Intercontinental title. So they did a pretty decent job there. They did cut the backstage after that, and they were they were prompting for the Nikki Bella Natalya match, and they show Nikki going to the ring. She gets attacked by Natalya there. This does lead into the what was supposed to be the match, but in this case it doesn't actually happen. The match basically just boiled down to a brawl, which I thought was actually a pretty good brawl between the both of them, where Natalya ends up getting the upper hand. The only real crazy thing about this one is that we kind of saw this with Carmella, where Carmella was continually getting the upper hand on Nikki until they actually had a one-on-one match, and then Nikki Bella would pull out the victory at that point in time. I almost feel like that's where they're going to go with this one as well, but we'll see how they end up playing it off. I thought they did a really good job here. Natalya gets the upper hand and eventually puts the sharpshooter on Nikki Bella to finish off the segment. And again, not a bad segment in general there. Up next, they had Dolph Ziggler, which he was supposed to be doing a promo about what happened last week with Kalisto and Apollo Crews, and is a setup for the match with him and Kalisto later that night. He basically, when asked, like, why did you do it? He just stood there and walked off. This is actually really good. He didn't need to give an explanation, and it plays off more to the heel character that is kind of coming its way, and does come out a lot more a little bit later in the night, matter of fact, which was next when Kalisto went up against Dolph Ziggler. Kalisto pulls out the victory in what most would consider an upset of some kind in some way, shape, or form. He doesn't win by like using his finisher or anything like that. He won by using a crucifix or a roll up or something in that sense. And again, it's one of those bits that it just triggered Dolph Ziggler. Like, they played it off his frustration initially. He attacks Kalisto after the match, but he goes that one step further to make you feel like he's just full on heel at this point in time. And that was the aspect of him using a steel chair to wear out Kalisto. Apparently, and eventually Apollo Crews comes out to help out Kalisto to go along with it, but he gets laid out with the same steel chair, and it pretty much signifies where Dolph Ziggler is. He's pretty much a heel at this point, with the aspect of the use of the steel chair and everything and that, like that. And I thought it came off rather well. The crowd kind of went into a yes chant for it, but I feel like they've been wanting something different from Dolph Ziggler to begin with, so that probably prompted the cheers more than boos in that case from him. You had American Alpha cut a promo about their match with the Wyatt family. Like right after this Ziggler match, you had a bunch of like extra promos and everything in that sense. You had American Alpha cutting a promo saying basically how good they think they are and everything. They almost come off a little bit heelish more than a face team in this case, but it also it shows their confidence and everything. I thought they did a relatively good job with this promo, saying that they know how good they are and we're going to show you how good we are in this upcoming match. You had Cena promo for his match with Baron Corbin later that night. I thought that promo came off rather well as well. Then again, it's a Cena promo, so they're usually pretty good. They're usually pretty good in most cases. Sorry, stumbling over the words there for a moment. But the next promo was from the Wyatt family, and this led straight into the tag match. They cut a promo saying, your typical Wyatt family fair promo, saying it's like, we're coming back for what is ours, and then eventually ends with run. And basically your typical fair, good Wyatt family promo, and this leads into the Wyatts going up against American Alpha. Well, Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton. I still kind of refuse to say Randy Orton as a Wyatt, but then again, they are fast. What most people are saying, they're probably fast tracking their dissension a little bit. American Alpha does win, which was given a very, very lengthy match between both teams, and I thought it came off rather well throughout that entire time frame. All sides looked pretty good in this one. The match ended with Chad Gable getting a roll up on Randy Orton after Luke Harper distracts Randy Orton after he had been knocked off the ring apron earlier when going for that invert, or not the invert, but the hanging rope DDT. And as Orton is going for the RKO, Luke Harper distracts Randy Orton. This leads into American Alpha getting the win, and basically the starting of a very heavy dissension between the Wyatt family members. You have Luke Harper and Orton arguing heavily between the two of them. Bray's trying to get in the way. Harper goes to hit Orton, but hits Bray in the end, and then they kind of all leave separately in some way, shape, or form to signify more dissension within the group at this point in time. But overall, not a bad segment. Really good match between the two of them. I thought it came off rather well. And they're starting the dissension between all the members. Maybe a little too early, but then again, they may be fast tracking this towards some kind of WrestleMania match or something in that sense. So we'll see where they're going to go on that side of everything. But overall, not a bad segment as well. I thought it helped all sides look pretty good. And then they had Becky Lynch backstage talking with Daniel Bryan, basically trying to convince him to give her another title match because Alexa Bliss was the one that tapped out last week in the La Luchador get up and everything, as they were trying to also figure out who the real La Luchador was, or the second one, because Alexa's the third one and Becky was the first one to go along with it. But Alexa comes in and says, it was just part of my plan to try to get closer to La Luchadora to find out who she was and everything. And you shouldn't give her the match because of that. And eventually Ryan basically says, yeah, there's going to be a match next week because you tapped out the week before. And this time around, it's going to be inside of a steel cage, which isn't a first in the WWE. It will be, I think, their second steel cage match. We obviously saw the first Hell in a Cell match earlier this year, but Becky Lynch and Alexa Bliss inside of a steel cage should be a very interesting match to watch next week. And I'm actually kind of looking forward to this one a little bit to see where they go along with everything on this particular match. I think they're doing this match on SmackDown versus the Rumble, because they already have the Raw Women's title on there, and I guess they're not going to put both women's title matches up on the card. I wouldn't see why not, but or maybe it leads into another match at Royal Rumble or something that says, we'll see where they go with this. But next week, inside of a steel cage with Alexa Bliss and Becky Lynch, it should be a pretty... I think this could be a really good match if they do everything properly, and we'll see how everything comes off next week. Up next was Carmella going up against CJ Lon. And what can you say about this match? I mean, it was very much a squash match, and also did a few things with James Ellsworth to go along with it, and also a little botchy as well at times to time, and it really did come off. It didn't really come off all that well. Carmella goes over in this match as you would expect, with James Ellsworth involvement, where he would like grab the foot or something in that sense, and then they did a backstage segment with the two of them setting up like for a shopping spree next week, which they also teased it off as like Ellsworth getting his first kiss or something in that sense to go along with it. They decided to do a little bit different there. I was not the biggest fan of this one. It didn't really come off all that well in the end. The backstage segment was alright. It was just the way the match came off, and it just felt a little sloppy and everything in that sense. Like I said, the backstage stuff was fine to go along with it. And we'll see how they're really going to be playing off this whole Carmella, James Ellsworth thing to go along with everything. This leads into the main event of the night, which was Baron Corbin against John Cena. And they had a backstage segment with Baron Corbin initially. He was cutting a promo about the match itself. He gets interrupted by AJ Styles. I love how AJ Styles was in this one. He set it up that he would be on commentary and everything in that sense. And it came off really well. And I loved how at the end he said, why don't you do your best AJ Styles impersonation and beat up John Cena? And it just came off well. It came off as him still playing the heel, even though he was talking to the heel in that sense of everything. The match itself was a fine and decent match. Baron Corbin looked pretty good inside of the match, though I still think it came off a little bit ho-hum as a main event. I would probably prefer the Orton and Bray Wyatt versus the American Alpha to be the main event. I felt like that was the better match. But this match was fine, and it came off rather well, and it does lead into a little bit more with with Cena going up against AJ Styles. The aspect of Cena winning, I can see that aspect. He doesn't have to be putting over every single new talent that's up there right now. He is going after the title after all, so he does have to go over at some point in time as well. But overall, not a bad match. Baron Corbin looked pretty good inside of the match to go along with it. So all in all, not a bad way to end the show as they go off the air there. You had kind of like a stare down between Cena and AJ Styles to go along with it to finish it off, and it came off rather well. So overall this week's SmackDown was not a bad show. It really was not a bad show. It wasn't one of their better shows, but it did set up feuds, and you do get something going into next week with setting up the steel cage match with Becky Lynch and Alexa Bliss, and we'll see how that comes off next week as well. And yeah, overall, not a bad SmackDown this week. I did thoroughly enjoy the show a little bit more than Raw this week. Then again, I felt the way Raw was going this week, it was not hard to pull that off, but SmackDown definitely did do that, and I felt like it was a rather good SmackDown this week. So with that being said, guys, peace out, have a good night. This is my review for WWE Smackdown this week. Have a great rest of your day.